Greetings. We're back. I'm back. Nobody's here, but I'm back. This is like football, football practice. We used to do two-a-days. Go out, 8:30. I think it was 8 o'clock, 8:30, in the heat, in the humidity, but it was the morning time heat and humidity, and we had to practice. Then we had to come back probably 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, right in the worst part of the heat of the day to do a second practice for the day in order to push us into shape. The training that's required is hard work. Don't like it. Who does? I mean, nobody likes that. We are in a time when we have to do two-a-days. We have to take we have to be intentional about pushing ourselves into shape. So, Son of Liberty 2020, that's where we are. Foundationally, as an American, what do you fundamentally believe? I fundamentally believe that I have unalienable rights, as does each person. Unalienable rights means I was not granted them nor bestowed them by benevolent king and parliament or benevolent, gracious, generous president or Congress. No, no, no. Hold up. Run it back. Let's go over that. Power of government comes from we, the people. My rights do not come from you. I have them, as do each one of you. The American colonies fought for independence, for our rights and our liberties and our freedoms, govern ourselves, to control ourselves, tax ourselves, these kinds of things. A few years after, the different members from the states met at a convention in Philadelphia to consider and develop a new form of government. They were originally framing it as an improvement on the Articles of Confederation. Why? Because that governmental system of confederacy didn't work or was clearly going to be inadequate for problems that were developing in the future. This was only a few years after independence. They came together and they met, and no matter what their views, their positions, their ideas, the way to do it, the Virginia plan was for representation in the legislative body to be by population, proportional based on population. Virginia was the largest state. It made sense. The small states said, no, 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 no. We will never approve that because you will wipe us out. The small states instead said, we will continue to have representation in the legislative body that makes the laws, passes the budget, spends money, raises the taxes. That representation will be by geographical unit, which is a perfectly legitimate way of having representation. However, the large states, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, they were the very, very large states, very large, Virginia being overwhelmingly large, said this isn't fair. So they ended up, because they were working on how do we get to create a government that will actually work better, they created a legislative body that has both a representation based on population, which is the House of Representatives, and a representation based on geographical entity of states. And they said, now we've got a bicameral legislative body, Congress, which each has the equal full authority to develop laws. The only caveat is they have to work together. They have to figure out how to make it work. And so pull back and say, why? What were they driven by? What were they conscious of when they were crafting this? They were conscious of tyranny. They were very concerned about the tyranny of the government, tyranny of Parliament. Well, that was replaced by tyranny of Congress. Tyranny of the king. Well, that was replaced by tyranny of the executive, which was the president. Even when they created a system, which we'll come to, that had controls, limitations, checks and balances, they were still concerned about tyranny of it getting away from the people. They put in a lot of checks and balances. They were committed to putting in checks and balances, and they understood that those checks and balances would make things a little bit slow, cumbersome, doesn't get done quickly, and yet they all, virtually all, they might have all agreed, virtually all understood that that was still better for us. Translation, make your case. If your case is good enough, is real, then enough people over time will actually come to it. They will share it. They will agree to it. So we have a system of government that we put into place that it's broken down. When was the last time you read the Constitution? Do it now. Put this on pause and go read it. First, the legislative. Second, equal branch of government, the executive. Third equal branch of government, the judicial. They were equal. They were not the same. They couldn't be the same. There was no intention of them being the same. They were to check each other. They were to work together. And they were also to say, well, wait a minute, hold up. And we've operated under that system since 1789. You now have people, this is a little bit of a jump ahead, preview of coming attractions. You now have people who are trying to undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. These are liberal, progressive Democrats. Call a spade when it's a spade. This is what they do. Why? Because the court makes some decisions that they don't like. And they figured out a formula to get so many people to be reactive and you don't need to pack the courts. Make better laws. You don't need to pack the courts. Accept the court's decision, go back to the legislature and craft the laws that will actually still be constitutional, that will still respect our individual rights, liberties, and freedoms. Go back to putting restraints or clearly declaring that this president doesn't have the right to do this. This is Congress's responsibility to pass taxes, to do the money. It's not Biden's. Congress should be saying, stop it. Stop with the promises. Stop with the student loan relief. Stop it. Congress should be taking that back. So, a little bit of details, warming you up. We, as a country, have always had our ideals. And we've always had our, unfortunately, we don't live up to them. Always. And here's a clue, here's a vow, here's the puzzle. Don't tell anybody I'm telling you this, but we are made up of human beings. We will never be the ideal. If you can't handle that, you take yourself now to that country that does it perfectly. You can't find it, so don't even posture. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. But we as a country have, over time, painfully, bloodily, with great cost and great sacrifice, moved to where we are better and we are more aligned. We are closer to our ideals. And we've been progressing that way over decades. But funny thing happened, strange thing happened. A bad thing has happened over the last 5 to 10 years. We have had an explosion of loud voices who want to tribalize us, who want to segregate us, who want to play the victim to the point that they don't care about advancing our society and our country. They don't care about it. They care about getting theirs. And they care about being the victim who gets to say they're the most victimized. It is a fetish with these people. And I'm going to call it out. It's liberal, progressive Democrats. If you are any one of these, if you are all of these, put your fork down, put the knife down, put your pen down, put a pacifier in your mouth, open your ears. Here's a simple example. What race are you? If you didn't answer human, then you are part of the problem. We know you're never responsible. We know you're never guilty. We know you've never done it. We know all that. You are part of the problem. If you encourage, by patronizing Black Americans, that they somehow are inferior because they can't achieve, you are part of the problem. And that includes Black Americans who have figured out they individually can gain by continuing to talk this grift. I posted a video just a little bit ago of the place we're at, which is that particularly Black Americans, children, are being shunted into, well, you can't imagine your life and your being anything unless you see a Black person in that role. You're limiting these children. Well, COVID shut down the schools. The schools, the children need to be at these schools. They need to learn. No, it's not acting white to actually study, to do math, to do science experiments, to learn how to speak proper English. That's not acting white. If it's acting white, how did James Brown get to be so good? How did Jim Brown get to be? How did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar get to be so educated, so knowledgeable, took advantage of his basketball skills to get not only an education, but to get his mind? But see, he didn't have to get it there. He just continued to expand it. How did Magic Johnson get to be such an entrepreneur? How did this happen? How did Prince figure out, through much effort and sometimes overly dramatic, that he needed to own his material? How did he figure that out? Was it because, well, it couldn't have been because he was Black, because Black people are only victims, right? That's what you all say. They're only victims. What's your race? If you're human, you're on the same side. Now, I love history. I love culture. I love backgrounds. This is not about either or, that you don't also have an ethnic heritage. You don't also have experiential heritage. Of course you do. Of course we all do. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting. That's what can help others understand parts that they don't even have experience with, so they can't conceive of it. I was in fourth grade. I'm old now. Old. When I was in fourth grade, elementary school, I read anything in the school library. None of this smut that they have out there. There was no smut in our school library back then. None of this modern day smut. But I read biographies and war, Revolutionary War, Civil War, War of 1812, World War II. I read all of that stuff. I was in Maryland, PG County. Shout it out. People think I don't know how to roll my eyes. People think I don't know what rolling my eyes means. I'm from PG County. I'm from PG County, Kenmore, first through fourth grade. If you're from PG County, if you're from that Landover, do you think I know what it means to roll your eyes? And do you think I know how to roll my eyes? I might not roll them often, but I know how to roll my eyes. These people crack me up. They look at my skin and they assume that I'm only this. I read the biography of Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was from Maryland. I was in Maryland. Harriet Tubman was freedom. She sought freedom. She was after freedom. She escaped to freedom. She was risked her life for freedom. She was hunted down for freedom. She came back to get other people out. Who was I going to identify with? You think because of the color of my skin that I was identifying with the people who were enslaving people? I was with Harriet Tubman. And why? Because I'm an American. Freedom. Freedom. So which side are you on? Are you on the color side of skin? You on the side of political grifters? You on the side of burn, loot, and mayhem? $89 million of the $90 million, they don't know where it went. Nobody listens to me. When they started this BLM bullshit, I said that is a Marxist organization. Why did I say that? Because that's what they said they were. They were Marxists. Oh, and why did I say it? Because I studied Marxism. Where's all the money? Where's all the money? It is not in the Black communities. The intention of all those idiots who gave money to burn, loot, and mayhem was the best of intentions. They were absolute 100% idiots to give money to a Marxist organization, and a Marxist organization filled with grifters. So, a lot of talk, a lot of words, because I'm just going to review. Checks and balances: legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Checks and balances: federal government, state government, state and local. Checks and balances: the most power belongs at the local, state, and local level, not with the federal government. Checks and balances: the president doesn't declare war. Checks and balances: the president doesn't decide money spending. What have you Democrats been doing with Joe Biden? He promised money. Congress should have checked him. The Democrats in Congress should have checked him. And here, because I know some of you cannot handle it unless Republicans get blamed. You can't think. Certainly in Obama, I don't remember if it was the end of Bush's time, but certainly Obama and then Trump, that whole time, there were people, including from the White House, who said, this authorization is expired, it's old, it's inapplicable for the use of force and American power and in these other countries. But Congress wouldn't do its job. So you now have Democrats, and they're all Democrats. It's an amazing phenomenon. Who don't like some of the decisions the Supreme Court has made. So now they're trying to delegitimize the Supreme Court. Here's what I'll remind you. Here's what I'll bring to you. They are talking about how the ethics of the Supreme Court, and they don't have the ethics. They don't have a code of ethics. Congress should do it. Now, you are a thinking person. Don't be a Democrat. You be a thinking person. How much money did Nancy Pelosi make playing the stock market last year alone? 2022 alone. Doing things that put Martha Stewart and others in jail. How much money did she make playing the stock market? How much money did the other members of Congress make playing the stock market with the knowledge and information that they had? And these Democrats and these MSNBC, CNN bullshitters are going to say Congress should set the ethics. 2 rounds of challenge. Yeah, gotta level up to both. First round of challenge for Congress. Pass a code of ethics for yourselves that you apply to yourselves now and immediately. Pass it. Pass it. Let's see what you think is ethical before you do before we engage in any more of this. Congress should decide this for the Supreme Court. Get out of here. Second, because that will never happen. Second, go back and read the Constitution. Congress doesn't have that authority. Congress doesn't have that authority. You don't like the decisions of the Supreme Court? Pass better laws. That's how it works. You pass better laws. You pass better laws. So there we are. We've got a media that is no longer the press that will tell you how you're supposed to think. Stop and think for yourselves. Explore other content. There's content on YouTube, Locals, Rumble, different places, independent content creators. They're by no means the answer, but they are part of a broader look at. I'm not endorsing, but I am saying that you could look at and listen to Tim Pool, Anthony Brian Logan, Black Conservative Perspective, Jericho Green. You could listen to Podcast of the Lotus Eaters out of Great Britain, among many others. Explore it. You have to do the work. We're in this day and time today where you have to do the work. And to come back to all of this is the underlying principle is not the right word, but the underlying outlook, maybe that's the best way of saying it, was that they were skeptical. They made you prove it. You had to support it. Even if they had different views, they both were like, well, where are you getting at? What do you have? That's where we are now. You must stop anything coming into you and at you and say, where's your proof? Where's your evidence? Where's your argument? Make your case. Oh, all you're doing is projecting. Oh, he's a racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, now transphobic, misogynistic, racist. Oh, so you have nothing. If you watch MSNBC, you watch race baiting to a raw, primitive, incredibly obvious level, but you still watch it. Why? 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 Explore different views, question all of it, and come back and say, are they standing for, operating for, supporting and developing support for individual rights, liberties, and freedoms, limitations on government, calling out the people in government for their inevitable failures, could be oversight, could be actual failure of attempt, it could be failure of corruption. That power feels so good. That money stream feels so comfortable. Call them out, be skeptical of all of them. Say, what are you doing? Yes. What have you done lately? I don't throw you out, but what have you done lately? There's that whole element. Another whole element is, what are you doing to raise the value up in the local communities? The one step up from the individual, other than family, but the one step up from individual is local. What are you doing? Did you support closing schools during COVID? Did you support doing this to children in COVID? 50 lashes with a wet noodle, do your penance and come back. Translation of that. You have to, I have to, we all do, but I actually do admit, recognize, painfully sometimes, but I recognize when I was wrong. Oh, I thought that was okay. I never even paid attention to that. Or I actively thought about that and I thought this didn't turn out to be right. I was wrong. Okay, I have to admit that. I have to accept that I was wrong about some things. If you don't admit you're wrong, go back to go. Don't collect $200 until you can go through and say, yeah, I was wrong. It was not intentional, but I was still wrong. Here we are. Our country is in many ways more segregated than it has been since 1935. What progress we've made. And many of us who have been quiet, who've been silent, all it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to do and say nothing. Our time is up. Speak up, join in. You do in your sphere, you do something that respects, supports individual rights, liberties, and freedoms, supports the children not being pressured into cutting off their genitals. God have mercy on your soul, because I will not if you push that. God alone can have mercy on your soul. This country might need to fall apart. 10 years ago, I would never have said that. What do you think? Come on. Open up, join up. Let's go. Son of Liberty 2020. hamliberty2020 at gmail.com, thelibertyhub.com. Our time is up. We're either going to save our society, our civilization, our basic fundamental human rights, or we're going to be subjugated by the Marxists and the totalitarians. Which side are you on?